Hello, I'm Shivani, hosting Eleonora. Um, I'm director, co-founder of the Museum of Crypto Art. Eleonora is an incredible curator, writer, thinker, truly one of the earliest pioneers of this entire NFT industry, and more importantly, like an art movement. So really excited today to dive more into everything that excites her, everything that interests her, and really how she sees the future of everything we're doing here. Welcome, Eleonora.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Shivani, Mocha, DMINTI. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for what you
Yay!
said.
Yes, we were on a train of thought, which I want to continue, um, which is, like I studied art history. I know you have, and we can go more into that. You have a very deep, long practice in traditional art, fine art, global cultures, anthropology, right? And diversity of perspective is something we try to always keep in mind and stay humble about. But we also have our own views and things that compel us and make us feel like we're okay with who we are and what we're putting our time towards. So, you were just at Art Basel. What was your experience like? What do you think about the NFT space currently?
As I was telling you in our train of thoughts, Art Basel is always very overwhelming. It is. I mean, first of all, art fairs and events connected to art fairs are always very overwhelming. I think it's just because you like the fact that you put all these years of history and this completely from all over the world history compacted in this little capsule, in space and time, where you're like you have such a little space and such a little time, and the entire world and the entire time is going to be captured there. Of course, it's overwhelming, even if we don't realize that. So that's the first fact. The second fact, of course, is that now at Art Basel, we have been participating with the NFT space, which wasn't happening a few years ago. And so we are also very, I feel very personally very involved. And so last year was already a little shocking to see, that NFTs, I don't know, there were these announcements. Oh, there's an NFT party, and then you go there and I was like, I see the party, but I don't see the NFTs. And then I was like, no, there's a screen there. That's the NFT part, which was very fun. And lots of yachts. This year was more serious. Now we are serious about, we take NFTs seriously, with institutions and, and everything. But again, I don't think that, somehow the history of the space, which is very clear and documented because it's on chain, it's on the blockchain, somehow it always gets distorted. And I think that when it gets distorted, it doesn't matter if you distort it for a better reason, for an intellectual debate, or because now we want to show the good art that is in the NFT space, instead of talking about money like we were doing last year. It's still distorted. So that's what my concern was a little bit. That didn't let me feel very good.
That's very true. I would love for you've written books about crypto art. I would just your background and your story would be really good to capture, I think.
Yeah, I didn't study art. I'm not graduated in art. I am graduated in Chinese and Chinese cultures. I'm a sinologist. But that's how I ended up to work for Ai Weiwei, the Chinese dissident artist. Who somehow, when you are surrounded by, I always make this parallel because I think when I was at our studio, I was there for 4 years. You were really surrounded by this atmosphere and spirit of freedom of expression, freedom really. It was a very special place. Weiwei couldn't travel because his passport wasn't given back by the government. And so the entire world was coming there. And, if they were coming there to talk about what was happening, and you're surrounded by these very special people, because of course, also Chinese people who decide to work with someone like Ai Weiwei, they made a very precise decision in their life on which part of history they want to be. So it was for me, it was very inspiring. But again, there's a quote by Weiwei who says that, once that freedom touches you, it never leaves you. Then you have to live with it, right? And I think that's how somehow I transited from that place to the crypto art space without knowing, probably unconsciously. But now looking back, I think that's where I found, after China and, after leaving China, which is what I studied for, and a place that I love deeply, where I found another space, probably the most contemporary creative space, where freedom of expression is at the center of it. So that's how I felt comfortable, in a second. This was in 2018, and I just happened to be in New York, and my roommate told me about this thing, which was called Art and Blockchain. He said, after he heard about my Ai Weiwei story, he was like, if you really want to keep being on the edge of this art world, which I didn't want have anything to deal with, I didn't want to work in a gallery or in a museum, but then I feel, how do I leave such a creative space, since I come from there now? And he told me about this, and I went to this conference, and on stage there was the Pepe people, Rare Pepe, Dada, Super Rare, Jessica Angel, and all these people that we know that really shaped and built the space. There was an art show with screens already in 2018. And but then after the conference, we had this dinner, and really, for me, because at the beginning, obviously, I was shocked, because everything you have ever learned in our society, which is like this, middle man in everything, it's just these pillars that are part of your life or that just don't exist anymore. So I was like, I need time to digest a little, but digestion happened very fast, because we had a dinner together, and these people were just amazing. And really, I thought, where was I until now? This is the most creative space I've ever heard about in the past years, as for in contemporary art. So I started with the Rare Pepe, project, doing a curated project for them, because Pepe, I thought the Pepe is everything. It's a meme. It's the expression of everything. You can express everything you want through a meme. And also the fact that, everyone could submit their own creation to the project. There was such a freedom of creation, experimenting, expression, everything in the Rare Pepe project, which I never heard about in the contemporary art world. It was like crazy, this curation, non-curation, people submitting, everyone can create their own card, and creating really like this community, probably for the first time, coming from the internet communities and creating this digital art community, then attaching these things to a token, and the token is the art. I was like, okay, I'm in, and then I never left.
So much of what happens in China for like us in the Western world is very much a like, this is freedom and that is not. When in truth, and we talked about this a little bit, in truth, we're not, we are subject to like propaganda and psychological warfare in a very similar way. Obviously, our personal freedoms to like build a business or have a family that we would like is different. For you, this freedom of expression as a current between your earlier work and now in crypto art, especially seeing the news today with OpenSea and royalties and all the bullshit, right? What is the role of the single artist and the curator in making sure freedom continues in the face of everything? Is it to leave? Is it to stay? What is... I'm just curious.
That's a very good question, which I wish I could answer properly. Well, it's I don't think that it's a responsibility that we should take, all of us, creators, curators, all of us in the space, because the space was built in a certain way for a certain purpose, which was very I mean, it was completely like experimental, but it was almost more precise than it is right now that everyone knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was talking about Miami, and like I go to the shows and I go to the events, and nobody is talking about what this thing is really about, just the promise. The promise of a better this, and that, a better everything, a better world for creators, a better like a fair space for everyone. Nobody's talking about that anymore. And I don't mean that in a nostalgic way, because I hate to be nostalgic and to talk about it like, oh geez, I was there, you weren't there. It's not about that. But the promise seems like to be fading a little. You talked about royalties, and that's part of that. Or, like bringing this art into institutions and only wanted to like deciding to only talk about one angle of these artworks, which is for instance, the creation through fantastic digital tools. Okay, fantastic, good, it's amazing art. What about the blockchain? What about the promise? Why are you here? Why are you using the blockchain? You're not using only for money, right? And if you're using it for money, how? That was also like a promise in that sense for artists to sustain themselves, and again through royalties. So no, I don't think that we should leave. I think that everyone should get more informed about history, because it's there. History is not centralized anymore. It's on the blockchain. So it's very possible to see what happened for real. It's registered, and this is like a big revolution. I think that very few people use the blockchain for one of its main functions, which is the timestamp that the blockchain does very well. We are so concentrated on ownership, but timestamp is probably what it does best. And so if you go through, like this history, and you learn, it's there for us to study and to get informed. Everything is on chain. We can read, and we can take the space. We can see how the space was built, for what, taking it from there, and keep, of course, developing and make it better, make it like keep pushing the limits, but never really forgetting where the space is coming from. What is the role of the artists and the curators? I think we talk about the role of the curators in this a lot. I want to say something probably not popular about artists who I love deeply. I live to work with artists. Artists are everything for me. They call me the spoiler of the artists, because I spoil them, because I really love to work with creatives. But sometimes I am also disappointed by some behaviors by the creators who are supporting this new wave of not supporting themselves, which is like a paradox. But it's being very careful about floor prices or many things. It's just like seems like a little group of creators do not support the cause anymore. For really, like, I wrote a quote, and curators, of course, curators were always the middleman, so we know about that. That's why I want to say about artists. Sometimes, like, artists also need to keep believing in it and supporting again, like the promise. I always forgive artists for like taking opportunities. I'm not judging creators for taking opportunities. I think that they should always take opportunities, but then we cannot complain if after a year we are where we are, because when you accept to give your art and like be rolled and work together, for instance, with huge auction houses who don't even know what royalties are, we cannot complain that after a year we are here debating about the fact that royalties should be taken out. This is not a judgment for artists to have said yes to auction houses, because validation is very important. I'm just saying that for us, maybe to give better opportunities for them also to believe in the cause, like to keep doing what we were doing, because otherwise that's how it's going to end. I sent, like, I wrote this quote while I was in Miami, which was like, very dramatic, but that's what I think. It's like we sold our soul to the evil for mass adoption and validation. That's how I feel. That's how I feel we did. And not everyone is very happy because it's validated. I'm also happy that we're everywhere, but I don't know if sometimes it's not always the right thing to do, or at least we cannot complain about results.
Yeah, definitely. I think I remember, obviously I came much later, but I still remember in like early 2020 or in summer being like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing if Christie's did something? Right.
Yeah.
And now we're here and we're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
What did they bring to the space? They brought validation, they brought marketing. Of course, it's huge.
They have such a high signal to like traditional art, but the thing is like they've created a marketplace, right?
Yes.
For slanging NFTs, not for thought and discourse and
and at the beginning, what was happening with the auction houses was the transactions. It's still happening. So it's still happening. The transactions are not on chain. So the NFTs are passed from the creator to the collector on chain, of course, because it's an NFT. But the transaction of like the sale is not that on chain. So what I'm saying is, yes, to Christie's and Sotheby's, let's collaborate, but you should impose Christie's and Sotheby's to do transactions on chain. Otherwise, keep it secretive and nobody knows. It's the old world. When the old world is applied only to a section of the new world, it's very dangerous. That's what we should fight for. We shouldn't fight for saying, no, I'm not going to be part of like a Christie's auction. Yes, I'm going to be there, but then I want transaction to be on chain because I want royalties. Otherwise, artists have zero royalties on any piece sold in an auction house.
Yeah, that integrity is so important, and generally, like we are moving the whole world is moving towards like individual sovereignty through online tools, with cryptocurrency being one of those, which is very important. But like if we lose these very important, crucial indicators of sovereignty and like basic senses of ownership, not in the sense of like it's mine, but like at least I hold it for its future online, we are losing the whole point for sure.
Yeah, you are the custodian. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah,
it's like centralized exchanges and everything. Let's not talk about that. But it's you are the custodian of it. That was the whole point. Definitely. So, and also it will be nice to see a little bit of like compromise between the two worlds. That would be nice, because I think that it's always very good when different worlds come together, and never seen anything bad about it. But when the arrows only go to one direction, it's a little dangerous. So we do things together, but like the core needs to be protected, and it's not. I don't think that it is.
Yeah, I think the thing is the validation you're talking about has now gone to artists, curators, anyone wanting status, like status, fame, like not recognition and love, but like status, right? Which is a very different goal. And I don't know how to make that go away. I don't know how anyone.
I don't know, but I thought we were the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I also want recognition. Everyone wants recognition, but that recognition that you were talking about, not the status. I don't even know what our curator means. I don't care. I know what I'm doing, right? But then, I don't know. Let's try to take the positive from this. But after like Art Basel Miami, it's very hard to stay like not to criticize what's happening.
I mean, it's better to be honest, I always think. It just, I can imagine people wanting to say like first, like foremost thinker, or like, like first is like, yes, but the status game is what is like sickening me right now, because it's so clear that most artists are really out for that. A lot of them. A lot of the newer, like,
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. About artists. I'm like, you guys have to be part of this as well. Everything is to support you, but you have to be convinced. You can't say yes to everything. You can be part of the rusted system again, because otherwise there's not so much that it's difficult. It's difficult because then you created, I think that the space created like a support system. The goal was for creators to succeed and to be, again, like self-sovereign, etc. So then, the next question probably is, yes, but now like you build the entire system. Now that we are successful and we are validated, why are we complaining about it? I don't think that was absolutely the kind of validation, again, that we were talking about. I think that it's more common in new artists coming to the space, which, again, I love to have new people. I hope we will forever have new people in the space. Otherwise, I don't know what we're going to do. And it's just, it cannot be always. It was very bad when there were like a very little people. It was very good, but it was nothing, right? It was like a family. So it's so much. It's better now that we have all this new creative force. But that's when I'm saying education also for them a little, because it seems like it's completely detached right now. It is more about putting your art on chain, and it's not right. Even from like more practical perspective, very few people are playing with tokens. Very few people are playing with what the blockchain could bring in that sense, or like value. Like ownership, but like, let's say, like in a abstract way, like idealistic way. Everyone is just using the blockchain so it's not, again, like I go to panels, events, shows, and the point is completely missed. It's not there anymore. That's a little.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think you can like practically, tangibly do to change this? Or what do you do in your work that makes you feel like it's going to be possible?
Well, for instance, this project that I just finished, right? The Rizzoli book. So the Rizzoli book, it's 50 interviews to 50 creators that I decided not to interview only people who were there at the beginning, because I really want to avoid this. There are so many people who brought value during these years, and even like, started from, I don't know, maybe the past month. So really like to give an overview on how everything started and everything was evolved and arrived today, but through creators that it's unbelievable and very beautiful to see how there are some creators who just got to the space and they answer to the core points of the space in their own personal way. That doesn't mean that they delete them. For instance, I always give the example of Anya and Dija operator, right? Just to name like a few artists. So they didn't arrive into the NFT space until last year. But then if you look at how they operate in the space, the main, since first of all, they have been doing digital art since forever. But the way they approach the space, the respect to the core values, like for instance, community is there, but they're not trying to do it the same way that we have been doing it, because it's their own perspective. So instead of like, opening, they said in the interview, instead of opening a Discord channel and create a community for opening it on Discord and do a Twitter space, for instance, they do experiential dinners. But that's to creating community. That's still very like a core value of the crypto and NFT art space, only in a, I would say, like in a modern way or in a very personal way. So I really support all the creators who are taking, customizing through their own eyes, but not deleting the values. That's very important. So, for instance, with a project like the book, you're able to tell many stories. I think that the best part of the book is that I didn't write it, but the artists were talking, so it's from my perspective. It's really like this 50 completely different pairs of eyes talking to you about how they see the space, about art. We don't mention the market. We don't talk about the market, which is not evil, but I decided not to put the market. We decided not to talk about transaction, really like money, but to concentrate, for instance, what is art? Why are you doing this? Why are you using technology in your art? And then why are you in the crypto art space? And I think that, for instance, telling this story is already helping to, for the truth, for many different truths, of course, to be out there and for people to get informed and know about and to understand that there's so much more, right? Like in the space than one we see, but also to be very clear. I mean, when you interview certain artists, to be very clear of how everything started and why. And the core question was, where are we at now? And where are you at as a creator? Since the beginning now, and where are we going? So, for instance, a project like this, or now my next project is and I think that's also another very useful way of approaching to solve what we were talking about. So I want to create this space where artists, it will be called Criticized by Creating, which is really like a Hyde Park corner where artists come and they talk about what's happening in our days. Because going back to what we were talking about, I think the blockchain is a little undervalued in its function of timestamp, which for me should be, it's almost everything. And so I would like to create this, almost like a permanent collection of commentaries, thoughts, feelings, ideas about what's happening in contemporary society through drawings, cartoons, artworks that come with a message. Why? Because then when you go back in time, like in 10, 20 years, and you're going to see this, it's almost like everyone is going to create a little manifesto about what's happening around. It can be like gossip, it can be very serious, it can be protest, it can be political and social commentary. But then you look back and you see how history was made by many people. It's almost like you're creating like a distributed history, because it's not like you cannot take a page out of, you cannot I give this example because I'm very familiar with it, but many other things, even in the Western world, but you cannot take out the page of Tiananmen Square protest anymore. It's there, it's on the blockchain. And so to see to have this, right, all these creators writing history in a distributed way, I think that's another way to avoid, distortion of history and and such.
I agree. The time stamping is maybe the most crucial part. Yeah. This is a difficult question because generally, you see these women artist shows, right? And I wanted to ask you this because I'm genuinely curious. You'll find women in Web3 or female artists, right? What is your approach to navigating being the label versus recognizing your own strengths and moving forward in a way that lets you empower women, but not get sucked into the narrative of being on the side?
Yeah, this is a very tricky question. It's I think about this all the time, and every time my answer is the wrong way, because it depends because there's so many layers and details. It's difficult. I think I have, let's talk about the personal reaction. I have a personal inclination to have a very strong refusal reaction to anything which is labeling. So for me, every time I was invited women in blockchain, I'm like, I'm not, I am a person in the blockchain space. And I don't want to be labeled because it's even stronger. Look at what we're doing here, you and I. And we're women. So it's just like a very big refusal for labels. But then I talk about this to artists as well, and then that let me think about for instance, like during the interviews for the book, I talked about this with a female artist, and I was like, like we shouldn't. I don't like this approach, the necessary, like you need to be put in a group of women. And then she said, yeah, but there's still much work to be done because, for instance, collectors. So the main, many collectors are male. So because I was saying that now that we're all, that's what I was saying, that now that we're all anonymous, I think that it's a great thing because we can actually be valued for, who we are. But then she had a good point, and she said, that is not true, because although we are anonymous, for instance, the education to the taste of, for instance, men in society, and considering that men are, many collectors are men, even if we are anonymous, they're probably gonna pick certain artworks. They're probably going to collect certain artworks that speak to themselves for real because we are anonymous, but this real is already influenced by society and the way they grew up. So they won't collect women art, So I was like, that is true. So it's not that, right? It's not that simple. Like, okay, I don't want label for me. I mean, we don't have to talk about women, or no, we really have to talk about women, because then there are so many perspectives, and I didn't think about that. And I was like, okay. Then someone else said, well, actually, the male collectors, maybe they, without knowing, maybe they have an inclination for like art created by females, because we are seeing more and more. For me, it's, if we could avoid to talk about this and really value everyone, that's what I'm trying to do. So for instance, instead of organizing like a show where you call the show like a women or something, do the same show and just call it flower, I don't know, like a sky. So it means that your intention is very clear, because the artists that you are presenting, for instance, are women. But I would never make a deal about it, because I know that if I don't make a deal about it, from my perspective, the result is going to be bigger, at least for people like me. It's almost like, it's almost like tricking, which is a little sad. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think about this? It's you can do the same actions and value certain groups of creators without talking about it in a clear way, and so actually even bringing more value.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think women have certain strengths that don't get valued, and instead we are asked to be hyper masculine in order to be powerful, right? And that is where I take issue, because and I see that a lot in crypto. You find women who are exceptional, who've done exceptionally well, like from an investor standpoint or even a curator standpoint, who are using tactics that are very masculine, like aggressive, manipulative, deceitful, right? So at that point, I'm like, what's the point? Like, you're just performing this kind of strength. So for me, the empowerment question is really around, like, are you empowering yourself in your own terms or on someone else's? Right, which is maybe what you're also getting at.
But that's what I wanted to say, though, which is, why don't we do things our own way, and we empower values and people who we want to empower without being too clear about that. The real revolution happens when you are making facts, and it's not that you don't talk about it. Revolutions start with ideals, but then you have to make facts. So the fact that I created the Rizzoli book, and I told you this, a randomized drop for which collectors, if you want to buy the book for the limited edition, you have one artwork in the cover, and if you collect one of the limited editions, you don't know which one you're gonna get, because for me, everyone in the drop needs to be equal. Otherwise, I knew for sure that after an hour I would have sold the covers, the books with the covers of 5-10 artists who we know who they are. And in these covers that I would have sold, probably there's even no one woman. So I designed a draw completely for everyone to be, again, like randomized, and then you get the one that you get. Did I talk about the fact that I thought that no women will be collected? No. I received messages from female artists telling me that they never felt so protected in a drop in their entire life because it was equal for everyone. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have to say that I was doing that because this and that. First of all, I was doing that for even other male creators who wouldn't have been bought because market is just dictating very stupid roles and results. But also women. There was not one female in the covers that I thought I will tell in a second. So what I'm saying is that I think that I created change. Then maybe the drop didn't go well because of this. But that's creating change. I didn't say that I've done it for women. And I think that I empower them more than if I said that. Does it make sense?
Yes. I mean, you are your actions, not what you say.
Also, you're not putting them in a spot of being a protected species. You just protect it through design a drop. Yeah. They don't have to know about the protected species. Yeah, they're protected.
Definitely.
That's more my approach.
I think that's something to be very proud of.
I mean, I don't know that, but it's how I not labeling, but empowering.
Yeah, it's a very fine line.
It is.
Especially when, like the World of Women project, that NFT project, right? Like it does a very good job of getting women together. But my question is always like, what is the purpose? Like if it's to make friends with other women, like great. But if you're trying to change gender equality with this project, it's just not going to work.
No.
Right?
You're not changing it. You're putting people in a ghetto.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's up to maybe, the world is changing. I still think the world is becoming more feminine in a good way. Yes.
It is. Slowly.
Yes.
Surely. But I don't want, for this specific topic, I don't feel like judging anyone's take because everyone has very also personal different reaction to how to empower women. That is my personal one. I prefer to empower without telling because I think it's the real empowerment. The fact that I am the curator of the Rizzoli book and it's not a man, I don't think that we have to talk about that, but I'm the curator. I'm a female. So that's where I see the real power. But I think that all these other projects is different angles to same. I don't feel like judging this.
That's very, very strong and very good. My last question is, you've seen the evolution of like the culture of this space, and you've also worked in like Asia, Europe, everywhere, America. Is a more globalized culture a more like online internet culture where we are heading? Or do you think that people are still holding on to like their localness and where they're from?
I get so mad when I see people holding to the localness. There are new projects now, even in Europe, like I won't name the project, but let's say really focusing on, the spirit of their own country, I think it's ridiculous. It's in the roads. Crypto art, as Art Gnome wrote a long time ago, I mean, it's not a very long time ago, it feels like it's a long time ago, is geographically agnostic, because the populations of the internet are geographically agnostic. This doesn't mean that you have to cut your roots and delete who you are, because even if you want to do it, you can't. So it's useless. But identities are very important. I'm a big supporter of different accents like mine in English, because it's like, first of all, I could never speak like a Native American, but if I could, I probably wouldn't want to. You need to, like, it's like writing English is a good example. It's the communication language. It's global, and then you keep your identity in it. But this, wanted to prevail with some cultures again. And this has been happening because, like institutions and the artwork came in. I find it to be ridiculous. I'm so against it. But okay, I think, and maybe it is judgmental, but I think it's different also based on the places where it happens, if it makes sense. Why? Because there are some places like crypto art, for instance. Well, I think it's a great project because there are some places who, let's say, that need a little push, a little help, a little push to start. And then even when I met them at the show that Mocha supported in New York, I said, okay, enough with this name. It was great. You did it. You're making it. Now you're not crypto art anymore. You are who you are. So I think that the push at the beginning for places like South America, there's so many Venezuelan artists who benefit from Bitcoin, from the rare peppers that changed their life. Dada changed the life of many South American artists, or so maybe it is already, or what is Osinachi is doing. So maybe there is a little bit of judgment already of like white Western European judgment already in what I said. I understand that. But for Europe, US, and etc., and all these new, groups of, let's say, very wealthy countries and very like established cultures, meaning that it's the cultures that wrote the history books and shaped the world based on their own view, to wanted to bring back that. I don't agree with that. But also for the countries that need a little push, I think that after the push, when I was speaking to, the artists from Argentina in New York, I was like, enough. Now you don't need this label anymore. You don't need it. You don't have to have the label of Argentina anymore. But at the beginning, I thought it's good to create community and emerge. We're not all in the same social, status. So I can live very well with that. But I know it's judgmental already.
No, it's a good perspective. Anything else you have thoughts on? You want to say? Anything you want to put out there?
Well, maybe we can say like the direction of, like, when I said that I'm very interested in like smart contract and stuff, because I think that it's a very good direction for the space that it can take and actually show, right, like what's possible. Yeah, so I think again, it's very personal, but I'm very interested in seeing like the blockchain, like taking over also as a tool, like with all its potential, because it can also help. It can help everything. It can help projects, artists. It can help society. It can help like social projects with social impact. It's like the like the blockchain as smart contracts. Like it's the tool can help many things, and I feel that we haven't been using it until now. There are only a few amazing creators who are already using it in that sense, but there is so much that can be developed even for good causes and a good use, or just for the sake of art, which is already very good for our souls. And that's what I'm interested in seeing developing. So it's, it will keep the core of the space, but it will also like develop in like this combination of art and technology finally, and we're not going to be at the intersection anymore, or God forbid they're going to be still like connected, that you cannot talk about one of the two without the other. That's what I'm hoping to see. And like with the usage of like smart contracts to create art, to create support systems, to like experiment with new interactive ways where like the audience can be part of the artworks themselves, etc. It's infinite. I can think about 1,000 things, but I think that's probably where I hope the space is gonna go, which doesn't mean that artists need to become coders. It means that it will become more like about projects done together with different creative perspectives. And I think that it will value again like the real core of this tool, which is equalizing and etc. Everything we know, distributing.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivani.
Yay.
Breaking news.